Okay, so we're recording. Okay, so I want everyone to give Anne a big hand. She's gonna well, first of all, let's welcome to our weekly TED Talks Femcubator edition, right? I want you to give I want everyone to give Anne a really big hand. She's going to talk about accessibility. And Anne, the floor is yours.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining. So yeah, welcome to Accessibility Dev Session, or A11y for short, because there are 11 letters in between A and Y. Hold on one second. All right, so agenda, we're gonna talk about why you should care about accessibility. How does a screen reader work? I'll do a little bit of demo with Mac built-in voiceover. We'll talk about what an accessibility tree is, a little bit about object affordance, what's focus, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard of ARIA. So we're gonna do a little bit of practice with that in terms of how you can use it to add accessibility into an element. And then we'll go over briefly what to look for when you're doing accessibility testing. And finally, how to use the testing tool. So firstly, why should you care about accessibility? About 57 million Americans have some sort of disability. So that makes up about 20% of the US population. So these folks include those with difficulty grasping. So, people who might have to navigate the web using just the keyboard instead of the mouse. There are people with visual impairments who rely on screen readers or, braille readers as well, and folks with hearing impairments. So creating accessible features kind of open up your app to like a wider audience. But in addition to that, addressing accessibility like benefits everyone. And here are some examples, not even web related per se, but things like ramps, where initially ramps were designed for, of course, like wheelchair users, but now the large population benefit. You think about folks with strollers that they have to get into the building, or like deliveries. And then things like audio captions are like a norm now, if you see on Netflix, Hulu, and everything like that. And even like text dictation, which I definitely take advantage of on my Mac. So like if you just press keyboard shortcut.
Even text dictation, which is a built-in accessibility feature on Mac, is something that I use on a daily basis.
So it like reads it for me, which, I don't have a disability, but still this is something that I use on a regular basis. So just some examples. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna show you how to use the voiceover feature that's built in on Mac. These are helpful basic commands that I think that would be good for you to have on hand, because it could be confusing when you get into that mode and you're like, oh my God, like the computer won't stop talking. How do I make it stop? And actually I didn't add it on this slide, but how you make it stop is by just pressing Control. That will make the screen reader like stop talking. But so let's get to it. Whoops. So I have Femcubator pulled up. So to activate voice control, it's Command F. And if you press Command F5, and just to toggle it, you just do Command F5 again. So let's do that. And then to move around, it's Control, Control Option arrow, so left and right. So start reading.
Femcubator, web content. You are currently on a tab inside of a group. To select this option, press Control Option Space. To exit this group, press Control Option Shift Up arrow.
Okay, so I'm gonna enter.
New tab button, search tabs, pop-up button, toolbar item, bookmarks, tool, Femcubator, web content. You are in Femcubator, web content.
So now it's going to start reading the web content specifically from top to bottom.
Heading level 1, Femcubator. You are currently on a heading level 1.
And then next.
What we do button. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control Option Space. Chrome has new window.
So I'll go through some of them real quick.
Resources button. Login button. Join us button. End of banner. Main. You are currently on a main inside of web content.
Okay, so you get the gist of it.
Voiceover off.
I'll turn it off. Okay, so let's present again. Okay, so brief information about how the screen reader did that magic. Like what we know is that, on the front end, whenever a page is rendered, the HTML, what the browser does with the HTML is converting it into a DOM tree, right? You have all these nodes, elements, attributes that you can manipulate, and that's how the web page is able to be dynamic. But what the browser also does in conjunction is turning the DOM tree into an accessibility tree, which is something similar. But based off of this accessibility tree, this is what the assistive technology uses to kind of, feed the screen reader information to read out loud. So this is an example of what an accessibility tree may look like. So you have a main, which might have a form, and then inside that form, there are all these semantic elements like radial button, edit text, there's a fly on my face, sorry, like edit text, combo box, button, and basically what these accessibility tree objects have are attributes and values, such as like name, description. So a name could be, like if you were to wrap a button, if you were to wrap some text inside a button that says like next button, so the name of the button would be next. So description is pretty straightforward. Role, you have whether it's a button, is it a nav bar, is it a list, things like that. And then an element may also have a state of checked or unchecked. And so again, like this dictates how the element is read by the screen reader. A bit about semantic elements. So semantic just means meaning. So these are elements with meanings. So on the right side, you see like header, nav, article, figured, footers. These are things that inherently tell you something about the element, right? And then non-semantic elements are things like divs and span. And like the difference, like when you can tell from the demo, we did a pretty good job with that landing page, where when the screen reader started reading, it said something like main, you are inside a main, or you're inside a header, or you're currently on a button, to click this button, blah, blah, blah. So that's because we use semantic elements. Let's say if we were to use divs only without adding any extra ARIA features, it will just read like you are in a group, and that's it. Like there's no specific information like, am I in a heading group? Am I in like a footer group? So you would be really lost if you're not somebody who navigates the page like visually. So object affordance, this was actually something that I learned back in OT school, occupational therapy school. It basically means that like an object affordance is something that gives you a clue about how an object is used, right? So the keyword is like, it's intuitive. Like if you see a door with a bar, you know that if you push that bar, the door is going to open. Or if like a teapot is also a good example, where you know that you're going to grab the handle and you're going to tilt the teapot, and then liquid is going to come out of the spout. So the same idea we want to apply to the web, right? Like you come across a button, so you know that button is meant to be pressed, an input field. So it's meant for, for you to type content in. So really the same idea applies. This is something that I recently discovered on Chrome, and I think this is new because some of the tutorials that I watched, they were saying like, oh, this is experimental, but there's actually a built-in accessibility tool on Chrome DevTools, and so I'll show you that quickly, and that could be really helpful in terms of like, seeing like the accessibility tree that we were talking about, and seeing what the names or roles of elements are. So basically, you just go to inspect, and like right here, you go to accessibility. Okay, so yeah, you see the accessibility tree. And then let's say if I were to select this image, yeah, so you see the name, 3 women of color with laptops working together. And this is pulled from the alt text. This is why the alt text is important, because this is what the screen reader is using to let you know what the image is and the role, which is cool. Okay. Okay. Give me a second. All right, so I'm gonna keep it here just because I'm gonna go back and forth with the demo. So for focus, so like even when you don't have a screen reader, I think using like semantic elements is generally a good idea, especially for people who use a keyboard to navigate a website. And this is done through focus. And so focus like basically determines where keyboard events go on a page. Like if you were to tap through a page, you usually see like a focus ring around interactive elements. And yeah, so, and like, for example, right, if I were to just tap through, it's gonna go to the button, 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 and then input, right, button. And so any interactive element, you basically want them to be focusable. Okay, so a couple of demo. I have this pulled up. So you are able to like make an unfocusable element focusable, and you do this through something called like tap index. So right here, I have just a few elements, an H1, H2. I have a button. This is a real button. And then I have an input and a fake button. If I start like tapping through this code sandbox page, you see that this is focused first, and then this, and then the fake button, even though, you know, it looks like a button, it doesn't get focused because it was made using a div, right? But the way that you can get around that, it's not suggested, but, you know, you can add something called tap index. You assign it value of 1. Let me save that. So basically now you can focus it. But the reason why this is a bad idea is because even though like visually, again, it looks like a button, and to like a visual user, there's like no difference. When you take like screen reader into account, it doesn't give you all the fancy built-in stuff that a button would. So it's like it makes clicking difficult. And so like if there's any takeaway from this that I learned and that I think you should also like carry over, is that just use a button. Don't use a div. Just use a button and then strip whatever preset that you need to from the button, just so that you could maintain that accessibility that's already built in for you. So it will make your life less difficult, I promise. And then another thing that I want to touch on is, oh, actually, let me leave that in there, is what I was saying before, because the accessibility tree relies on the DOM tree to, you know, to construct. The order of the elements really matter, right? So whatever order of HTMLs that you have here, that's the order that is going to be read by a screen reader. That is the focus order. So for example, right, if you have a page where, like, if I have this button, right, real button, and if I were to add in some CSS, that makes it move down here, right? So like visually, you know, we have like input, fake button, real button, but this, if I were to tap through it, the real button will still be focused first because it comes before everything else on the on the DOM, if that makes sense. So the way around that is just to move, you know, this element down here. Right, so the order is still the same, but now you maintain like the focus order and the order through which the screen reader would read things. So yeah, okay, so going back here. So ARIA stands for Accessible Rich Internet Application. And it allows you to specify attributes on elements, which then modify the way that the element is translated into the accessibility tree. So long story short, if you are building something like complex and there's not a built-in element for it that's inherently accessible, you can use ARIA to add in those features but if there is already something that exists, you prefer using that, if you know what I mean. So, and there's so much to ARIA that honestly, there's just so much. So I'll just show you like a little sneak peek preview, but if you definitely want more information, like check out MDN or other resources. I think like you can make like a whole full-length class out of ARIA. So the demo I want to show you is, let's say you have a button. As I've said buttons like a million times already, but okay. So let's say you have like a close button, right, with an X. Let me move this. Okay, so let's say you have a button with an X, right? And ideally, you know, this is a closed button. Maybe you have a modal open or something like that. But right now, if I were to inspect the button, I go to accessibility. So it's basically saying that this is an X button when I want it to say like close button, right? That would make more sense, like semantically. So what I can do is I can go back in here. I can add ARIA label. And I can put in close. Right. So now close is the name of the button. So when a screen reader goes to read it, it's going to say close button instead of X button, right? Which would make more sense. Okay, cool. And then just a few more slides. Bear with me. Okay, and in terms of what you should look for in general when you're testing for accessibility is, well, this is like non-exhaustive because there are like really a lot of things that you can look for. But in general, I think a good idea to start is, you know, like I said before, making sure that all the dynamic elements on the page are focusable with a keyboard, right? If you can tab through everything, that would be a good start. And then you want to go through like the screen reader, making sure that images, their alt texts are red, and like where you have inputs that the labels are red, and then there's a semantic structure. And actually what's really cool about the voiceover on Mac is that if you, so let's go here. If you press, what is it, Control Option U while you're in voiceover, it's gonna show you like the outline or the semantic structure of the page. So I'll just show you that quickly because I think it's pretty cool. I just learned about it today.
Voiceover on Chrome. Voiceover off.
1 second. Let me move this here.
Theme Incubator. Web content.
Okay.
You are currently on a web content.
So Control Option U.
Headings menu.
There we go. So, you know, you can see like the headings, all the headings on the page. So you can check like to see, okay, good. I have like
Theme Incubator to everyone. Wow, that's amazing. You are currently.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. Control is the key. So let's try that again.
Don't apply to Incubator at Jackson. Voiceover. Don't apply to everyone. Dope.
All right. I think it's reading your chat.
Theme Incubator. Web content. ALV to everyone. Lul. You are currently on a button. Don't apply. Theme Incubator. Voiceover off.
All right. I don't know why it's like sticking onto the Zoom button. Okay. Don't say anything.
Theme Incubator. Web content. Headings menu. You are currently on a web content inside of a group. Power controls menu. Jackson Chen to no items in Jackson landmarks articles menu.
Articles. Okay, so
no items in articles menu. Natalie Ramirez to everyone. Theme voiceover to everyone. Lol.
So I think what happens is that every time there's a new chat, that takes precedence. So thank you for messing up my talk, everybody. No, that's cool. So yeah, it does give you like an outline of all the semantic elements on the page, which is cool because you can see like, okay, good. I have like one H1 header and everything is where they belong. So, okay, and then lastly, you want to check for things like color contrast, which you can use Andy for. And this is Andy, just accessibility testing tool. Installation is like super straightforward. Basically, you go on the site and you just like drag Andy to your bookmark bar. And so now where's Femcavator? Let's go to Femcavator. So now if I were to click on Andy, it's gonna give me like a run through of all the accessibility items, right? And whatever that whatever that it detects that might be wrong is gonna let you know with a warning or like a notification over here. And so yeah, focusable element, graphic images, link buttons. And you wanna just like go through this to make sure that everything checks out. Sometimes it'll just tell you to do like a manual test. For color contrast, I think it's cool because if something is not contrasting enough, it'll let you know, but it'll also give you like a suggestion to like, hey, this color like works better. So that's super useful. Yeah, I had like a little bit of trouble with this when I was working on the What We Do component, but yeah, this helped out. So, and then yeah, good course to check out. I watched a little bit of this Alleycast hosted by Rob Duffson on YouTube. If you guys want a little bit more details, obviously there's still like so much to it. But yeah, I hope this gave a good intro, and definitely that's something that I want to learn more about too as I, go forward in my career. And so, yeah, that's it.
All right. And that was really, really informative. Thank you so much. Does
Sure.
anyone have any questions for Anne?
Questions, and I'll send the slides so y'all can have it.
Perfect. Yeah. Sharuk?
No, just looking at my notes, but it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, great presentation.
Okay. All right. All right. I thought you had like. All right. Anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns?
And can you do my dev session?
I don't know notes, so sorry, you're on your own.
All right. That was I had a fun time tonight, especially when it started like reading off the chat. That was really funny. All right. So if anyone, if no one else doesn't have any uh doesn't have any questions, I think we're gonna get back the rest of your night and your weekend, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a
Cool.
good weekend, everyone.
Take
Yes,
care.
Great weekend.
thank you. Thank you, Anne. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you, An.
Bye.